do we know whenever we're angry in a very healthy way that we can actually use that as energy for achievement versus being pissy, where our emotions are actually out of control and it creates crisis, drama, and chaos within us, mentally, emotionally, and physically? And how do we know when maybe we've actually been poisoned by someone else in a passive aggressive way because they want to put us into that pissy state? Piss. I like to use it as an acronym for parts, imprints, and self-sabotage, but they put us in that state and that place in order to weaponize and use our emotions for their benefit at our expense. That's what we're talking about today. Today is part 2 of this series called Dysregulation, Dysfunctional, Toxic. Can it get any worse? Yes, it can. And we want to stop it before it gets to crisis for you. Or if you are in crisis, we want to be able to get you out of that as quick as possible. And when I say crisis, I mean in an emotional state and place where you feel like you no longer have any agency, no longer any control over what it is that you're focusing on and how you feel about it. Those thoughts continue to ruminate over and over again, and the stress just almost is unbearable. Let's bring that all back within a boundary, because the number one reason to have boundaries is to keep you safe. And when you are dysregulated, your system is trying to tell you in the easiest way that it knows that you're not safe. Okay, so today's all about dysregulation. I'm going to use myself as an example on these. So I have a new puppy. I had him since he's 9 weeks old. He's 4.5 months now. There is for those of you that are watching the video, there's a picture of him on the screen. He's sleeping at my feet right now. That was a shot from just a few moments ago. And he's 4.5 months now, and he is 80 pounds. 80 pounds plus. Yeah, he is what's known as a Saint Dane, half Saint Bernard, half Great Dane. I've always had large dogs. This is the first one that has been supersized. And I knew that I needed to have boundaries with him that were going to be very effective. The number one reason for a boundary is it keeps you safe. And so I sought out the advice of a trainer. I'm working with a trainer, both privately and in group, for him and for me. So, and I wanted to touch on that. See, there are 4 types of boundaries. The first boundary is, I've got this. I don't need anybody else's help. The second one is, I need to make a request of someone to where we can work in partnership. The third one is, I need to talk to an authority figure about this because they have insight and a skill set where it's called transfer of authority or transfer of power, where they're going to transfer over mentally, emotionally, and physically what it is that they have that I need to become. So it's an identity. They're going to transfer that identity over to me. They're going to empower me with the ability to do that. And then the last boundary is, hey, I've done all I can do. This is not improving with my continued investment. And so I don't want it to become a liability. I'm walking away from it. I knew that I needed to have the identity of a woman who has a large dog, and that large dog is under control. Went out on a one-time coffee date, lasted 45 minutes, because part of the way through, he goes, you need a man in your life because you picked a large dog and you need to have someone help you handle it. Yeah, that's why I hired a trainer, not some boy pretending to be a man. Okay, so Boundaries are meant to keep you safe. And this is the reason why at times we need to seek out the assistance of an expert, because we don't have the capacity to develop the identity for that safety. And then the second reason why you draw boundaries is it allows others to draw boundaries also. If you have somebody who's violating boundaries, here's a great thing. By you drawing boundaries, they're not going to like it. Nobody does whenever they're used to taking advantage of others, even if they're not aware that they're doing that. But subconsciously, you're kicking off something known as mirror neurons. And they see you do it in a healthy way. And now they are more likely to be able to draw a boundary. Keep in mind, drawing a boundary is never meant to punish anybody. It is always to keep you safe. It's a container that you are able to pour yourself into and then fully express yourself. So for example, I have a glass of water sitting next to me. That glass is the container. It's the boundary for the water. And so then the water can be fully utilized. If it didn't have a boundary, it was running all over my desk, well, I couldn't use it and it wouldn't be able to perform its function either of nourishing me. Okay. So that's the second reason why to have boundaries. And then the third reason why to have boundaries is it gives you needed information about the other person that you're working with. And drawing a boundary with my dog gives me needed information on how he responds. Keep in mind, I'm going to be talking a little bit later on today about reactions and responses. Reactions are based on past pain. Responses are based on future impact of where we want to go. Too many times we're in a reactionary state. That is what's known as dysregulation, where our system is out of control and we want to be able to be response-able. Okay. And then the fourth reason to have a boundary is based on the first three. It lets you know if you want to continue in that current experience the way it is. Okay. So I am working with a puppy who has puppy teeth and likes to nip. Now, I've had large dogs before and they would nip at my knees or my calves, trying to get me to play. But I have a dog who can easily reach the back of my arms at 4.5 months and nip there. My trainer taught me how to go what's known in the animal training world as non-reactive. When you're dealing with people, it's what's known as gray rock. And that means you're in control and it's just like a gray rock. You're not showing any emotion. You're calm, you're grounded, you're centered. You're not going to let it move you. And just as a sidebar, then I was taught to turn away from him. And if he keeps on, then I remove myself from the situation. And as the trainer is sharing all of this with me, oh my gosh, I'm chuckling to myself because I'm like, this is what we have to do when we're engaging with someone who has gone dysfunctional in their habits in a way where we can't help. And it's definitely what we need to do with somebody who's toxic, but we'll get to that later on. Okay. So when he jumps up, he's wanting my attention, but he needs to be able, Thor is his name, Thor needs to be able to choose a better way of engaging me or find something else to play with instead of using me as something that he can nibble on, right? Okay, so I have that pretty much under control. The other day, I was in here working on something and he had gone into the living room and I hear a crashing sound, which is alerting me that I better go see what he's up to. And he had gotten on my love seat and jumped up against the wall and pulled a dream catcher off the wall, and now is in the process of tearing it up. Now, I've had dogs in the past chew on furniture. I've never had any pull artwork off the walls. So I took it away from him, came back in, redirected him, came back in, and gosh darn it, within a few seconds, now there's a larger crash because he had pulled a sculpture off the wall and was dragging it around my living room. And it is that point when I dysregulated. Okay. Started crying, saying things like, I love you so much, but am I ever going to be able to have nice things around you? And my reaction, because I was in very much reactionary state, my reaction was out of harmony with what just happened. I mean, I was having a big blow up that really wasn't necessary based on what he did. I mean, hey, yeah, pulling artwork off walls, it's pretty serious. And I had a girlfriend say, well, evidently Thor does not like how you feng shuied or your taste, or maybe both. And while I was having that reaction, a thought, a memory popped up of me on my red tricycle. I was about 2.5, and my mom and dad had gotten a new puppy. It was a Samoyed. And I just remember this big white puffball, and he was chewing on my feet, and it hurt so bad because I was trying to pedal my tricycle around on the back patio, and he was chewing my feet, and there was nothing that was going to make it any better. Now, in yesterday's episode, I asked you to think about being dysregulated and who taught you that? And this is the reason why. So I was sharing with my mom after I had calmed myself down, and I'm going to teach you some of the techniques that I used. But after I got into my grounded state again, and I called my mom, and now we're laughing about it. And I shared with her the memory I had. And she's like, I remember that day. She said, yeah, Nico was biting at your feet, and you had kept hollering for help and hollering for help and hollering for help. And I finally told you that if you didn't learn how to defend yourself against the dog, I was going to spank you instead of the dog. Now, back then, that was common. But there was no transfer of authority with that, was there? There was no transfer of power. What I learned from that, and it all came flooding back. What I learned is when I'm being hurt, I'm not safe to rely on others around me to help me. And I'm going to have to pay the price for others being out of control. Oh, and then that was reinforced for decades in different relationships that I would engage in, where if someone was out of control with their behavior, I would do everything I could, but I would wind up taking on the responsibility for their impact instead of letting them pay the consequences. Because see, that's one of the things whenever you draw a boundary, is that if there is a violation of that boundary, there will be a price that's going to have to pay. There's going to be a consequence. But when you don't have healthy boundaries with others, you wind up paying the price for them. Isn't it fascinating how I got into a field because of that wound? It's in my field, it's known as one of the original wounds. And so one of my original wounds is not being able to rely on others when you've been parentified. When I was parentified, that means expecting to act as an adult when you're still a child and then having to pay the price for others. Isn't it interesting how I got into a field where I wanted others to be empowered so they didn't have to experience this anymore? I didn't even put all of that together until I had been a certified hypnotist for years and then got into this type of work. So that's the reason why I asked you yesterday, who taught you to be dysregulated? Because it was someone in your environment, usually by the age of 8, 80% of who we are as an adult is learned by age 8. So it's somebody in your environment and they taught you to be dysregulated because they themselves were dysregulated. This is not where we get to point the finger, where I point the finger at my mom and go, Mom, it's all your fault. No, she was just continuing the legacy of what she had learned. But here's the great thing about learned behaviors. They can be relearned. Okay. So that meant I was going to need to be able to draw healthy boundaries as I got into certain situations that was going to keep me safe and find when it was appropriate to engage an authority figure to help keep me safe as I was relearning all of this, and then how not to pay the price for someone else's out of control behavior and instead invest. No longer looking for liabilities, no longer looking for where I'm going to lose. And it all happens subconsciously. You're not even aware of it. What you're aware of is the results when you're like, how did I wind up getting here? So for me, no longer looking for others to where I am going to lose, now looking for others to where it's an investment. Okay. So as I said yesterday, we talked about how you were taught to dysregulate. One of the things that we're going to touch on today is that whoever taught you to dysregulate, they were being pushed into that dysregulation. Who was around in their world that actually overlapped in your world? Who was toxic? And now you will find yourself around toxic people again, and you'll go back to that original dysregulation because that's what you learned to do. Not your fault, but you have to accept 100% responsibility for upgrading it, where you are influenced in a way where it's impactful in your world, not where you're having to overperform for someone else at your expense. But again, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So be thinking about who was pushing them into dysregulation, who was still in their world when you were learning this behavior that was causing them to dysregulate. And how then were you picking up another learned behavior of how to work for these people, but you can't work with them? Okay. So that is what it is like to go pissy or piss. Parts, imprints, and self-sabotage. An imprint happened. An imprint can be an experience either one time or repeated over a certain period of time that had emotional context to it that then resulted in you having a focus, having feelings and actions that were all congruent. And we have literally millions of imprints in our life. It is also known as a subconscious heuristic. It's a shortcut. If you are looking to cross the street and a bus is coming that direction, Do you need to step out into the street and then ponder how fast it's moving? How much does it weigh? What kind of impact is it going to have if it hits you? No, you already rode pizza. So your subconscious mind has a shortcut that it already knows. No, stay away. Just like don't put your hand on a hot stove. Okay. Now, those things will hurt. Those things will cause harm. So we have imprints that are absolutely amazing. I love to see adults around the holidays become like children again. They get so excited with the decorations and the parties and the friends because they have an imprint of going through the holidays many times over where it was a wonderful time. And then that comes out. So we have imprints that are very healthy. But then we have imprints that are going to lead to self-sabotage. So when an imprint is strong enough, who we were at the age the imprint took place becomes frozen in time, which is the reason around the holidays, a lot of adults act like little kids. That's what I'm seeing come out, who they were when they originally enjoyed it. So imprints that lead then to a part of a personality. But if that part of our personality was going through something that was emotional flooding, it was overwhelming, that the allocation load was too high. It's also known as an allostatic load. That is simply a fancy term for stress. So if we were going through a situation where we did not have the capacity to handle the stress, then that part of us freezes in time with the original imprint. And then we move into an experience that triggers that part of us to come out. And then we wind up self-sabotaging. So it wasn't me, the healthy me, looking at my artwork on the floor with Thor going, oh, this is going to make a great story later on after I get him to chew on something else. No, it was the 2 to 3 year old that came out and went, that hurts. And I can't get it to stop and I don't know what to do. So having compassion for yourself, whenever you go through these experiences and you realize what's being triggered is a younger you that just didn't have the capacity at the time to handle things, very much needed, but you can't stop there. This is the reason why when people go, well, you just need to love yourself more. Okay, well, if you were to continue to love yourself, would you allow a child to keep going into a situation that they can't handle? No. Sometimes you have to draw boundaries with yourself and go, oh, honey, I get it. But guess what? You're not supposed to show up here. This is the reason why I love hypnosis. This is what I actually utilize when people are in a hypnotic state, because then we have access to the subconscious and the different aspects of the personality. And I do a 4-part process that is trademarked for me. It's known as the 4 R's: reveal, release, relearn, rejoice. We reveal the part of you that actually holds the original imprint of harm. There's a difference between hurt and harm. Hurt or pain can be very motivational to go, I don't want to experience that again. Harm begins to destroy our sense of self and then be replaced with something dysfunctional. So the 4 R's, the first one, reveal. We reveal the part of you that holds the original imprint. Then the second R, we release it from that contract. I tell you what, that 2 to 3 year old me, she just wants to go ride her tricycle and have a good time in the backyard. And I had to remind her that that is her job, to find joy outside, to find all the things that, have her feel so good. whenever I'm out on one of my hikes and I pause to look at flowers and I feel like, oh, that I'm in such awe. It's almost like the first time I'm seeing this type of beauty. I can directly relate that back to her discovering things for the first time in life outside that just took her breath away. That is what she's supposed to experience in my life, is that type of wonder. But I have to release her from being hurt. The third R is relearn. So what do I want her to do? But then I need to bring in the adult aspect of me, the wise woman, the dog owner of an extra large dog, 2X, okay, who knows exactly what to do. She is in control of herself. And because of that, the animals and the people around her also get to co-regulate along with her. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So it's setting up that regulation where my system is operating from the set point I was born with. All of us were born with set points in our system for success. And it allows my entire nervous system to go back to that set point. And then the fourth R is rejoice. So who I am now, along with my wise man or wise woman, as well as the younger me, that holds that innocence, that joy, that play, that wants to find things that are pretty. Okay, we all come together, and that is the Trinity that will take you to the top. Is those three pieces of you. Right now, you are using a puzzle that you've only got like one piece to, and you think if you keep reorganizing it, you're going to get the picture of the high quality life you want, and you're not going to because you're missing the pieces. Okay, so that's what we look at then is piss, parts, imprints, self-sabotage. Then we use the 4 R's, reveal, release, relearn, rejoice. By the way, if you want to see if I'm a fit to work with you, utilizing hypnosis, whether it's my VIP day or it's 4 sessions with me called Jumpstart Your Success, which lays the foundation. You can reach out to me, 1-636-699-7791. You can send me a text, you can leave me a voicemail, and I will reply back with a link that will take you to a calendar to where you can set a time where just you and I will talk, and we'll make sure we're a good fit for each other and see what might be the best opportunity for you. Okay, so we've covered being pissy. Now let's talk about anger. Anger is actually very healthy, except we haven't been taught to either experience anger or when we are angry, how to use it. See, anger is telling you that a boundary that you have placed around something that you consider to be valuable, that you consider to be significant, that boundary is being violated. When I'm driving in my car and someone decides to cut me off and almost hit me, I have a right to be angry because it's my safety, my well-being for myself as well as anyone else who might be in the car was just violated. So what do I need to do? Remember, it's, hey, first one is, I've got this. Second one is I need to ask for someone else's assistance. Sometimes I need to blow my horn to make them aware that I'm there. Third one is I need to have an authority figure. Fourth one, I need to walk away. I've done all that I can. So, maybe it's, I've got this. I just need to understand that I need to back off from that person because they're a terrible driver. It's that whole gray rock. Not going to ride their butt. I'm not going to flip them off. I'm just going to pull back and go, yeah, now they've told me, they've informed me what I need to know. So I can then choose how I'm going to move forward. I am response able. Okay. Then we look at what are the consequences if someone violates a boundary. And a lot of times that's where we have our biggest challenge with boundaries is we draw a boundary and we're like, you're not going to do this. I'm not going to put up with this. But then what's the consequence if they do it again? Now, we can have in mind those consequences. It doesn't mean that we need to share them with others, but we at least need to have for our own personal progress orientation, what's going to be the next step if they continue this. But when we experience anger that keeps showing up, it's saying, okay, is the boundary still appropriate? Do we need to take it to the next level? Or is it what we're valuing? Is that still significant? That's still appropriate? I'm going to give you an example of this. So I have a friend who, when she gets dysregulated and overwhelmed, she will have a dysfunctional habit of what's known as breadcrumbing and stonewalling. So breadcrumbing is when you just throw out a little bit of something. Toxic people will use breadcrumbing to where all of a sudden they'll be nice to you. And you're like, oh, wow. Well, maybe it was just me. Maybe it wasn't as bad. No, if you thought it was bad, it was. Okay. So breadcrumbing is meant to hoover, like the vacuum cleaner. It's supposed to hoover, suck somebody back in. So I have a friend who breadcrumbs. She'll throw out details of something big that just happened or is going to happen. And then will stonewall when you ask about it. And stonewalling is when they don't want to give you any details. So throw out breadcrumbs of something big that just happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, how'd that impact you? And it would be like, I'm fine. Okay. Well, I noticed, something happens once, I'm paying attention. Something happens twice, I'm suspect. Something happens 3 times, I'm informed and educated. And I noticed on the 3rd time, I was getting angry because I felt like I was having to pull information out. And I'm like, okay, so let me ask the 3 questions that will inform me on whether or not I should proceed. And these 3 questions are, does it need to be blank? So does it need to be said? Does it need to be done? Does it need to be experienced? Fill in whatever you feel is the action word that needs to go there. And then after that, so let's say, does this need to be done? She's breadcrumbing and then she's stonewalling. So do I need to pull the details out? I'm not quite sure. And then the second question is, does it need to be done by me? Okay, I realize what she's doing now. And she's not drawing a healthy boundary, because a healthy boundary would be coming to me and going, hey, it's my friend. Yeah, I need assistance. Not necessarily in those words. Okay. But yeah, I could really use your shoulder. I could really use your support. The 3rd question, by the way, is, does it need to be done by me now? Because sometimes we do need to do things, but we also have to look at the timing. But I was like, let's go back to the original boundaries. See, we're circling back to what it is that I gave you earlier. Actually, what we're doing is it's what's called a spiral. We're spiraling up in your brain. We're going from a foundation. We built a foundation earlier, and now we're building on it to take you to higher levels in your brain. I like calling it reaching higher levels of success with less effort, because we built the foundation earlier. This is what I do with all of my coaching clients. By the way, all of this is taken from what I've been working with my private clients over the last couple of months. You're getting a synopsis of it. Okay. So does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me? Now, we'll go back and look at the boundaries. And if someone is violating your boundary, or maybe if they're violating themselves because they're not drawing a healthy boundary, you want to ask, do you need to engage in this? And so I decided that no, it did not need to be done by me. I was not the expert that she needed. So what I did was what's known as an invitation to co-regulation. I'll explain it. It was, hey, if you need to talk about it, when you're ready to talk about it, let me know. I'm here for you. And that was it. Because co-regulation happens through something that is known as inclusion of others in self, which is the reason why, oh my gosh, you can be a mark. You can have a target on your back for toxic people. I already know that if you've shown up here, it's because you have empathy. And empathy was actually developed between the ages of 8 and 10. Part of our family of origin assisted with it, and then whoever was an authority around our life, like teachers, but it was our friendships that we started developing at this age, where we discovered we matter to other people, that we can assist them in feeling good. We can contribute to their worth. So empathy, and then what you value, and having self-esteem, which is simply how you feel about yourself. All of those attributes were developed between the ages of 8 and 10, and then you took them into inclusion of others and self, that your identity is expanded through your relationships. Let me just say here, this is the reason why toxic people will be attracted to you, not because you're an easy mark. That's a bunch of bullshit that's out there. I discovered that when I went through my own healing journey. They're attracted to you because they feel like you possess something that they'd like to have. And I call them cluster Fs. And you can imagine what the F stands for. But it's the type of personalities where they really don't have a sense of self. And so they will seek out in others what they wish they had, but then they don't have the ability to develop it. And the very thing that had attracted them to you, the fact that you have empathy and you have values and your self-esteem, you know, is enhanced because of the people that you're around. And they're like, I want more of that. And then because they can't suck the life out of it and take it away from you and then have it for themselves, kind of like Dracula, there's a reason why they're called vampires. Then the very thing that attracted them to you is the very thing that they will hate and want to destroy. We'll get to that in just a minute, because remember, it's dysregulation, dysfunctional, toxic. Can it get any worse? Okay. So you want to include others in yourself. You treat them how you want to be treated. And so you're feeling great. And then someone gets around you that's dysregulated. Well, now they have a choice, because you're regulated. And now they have a choice. They can either step up to your level, they can bring you down to theirs, or the two of you will have to part ways. But you both have to be on the same level. Now, I have an adage that people need a hand up, not a handout. Handout keeps them on the same level. I offer you, even when I say, hey, let's have a complimentary consult. By the way, you can go to one of my websites, canhypnosishelpyou.com, and set up a complimentary consult. And I guarantee you will walk away with a tip, tool, or technique that will improve the quality of your life. A lot of times with same day results. Yeah. Now, it's not going to get you the goal that you want, but it'll at least make the day-to-day stuff a little bit more manageable. Okay. So you are offering them a hand up to a higher level in the brain. We want to get to that outer cortex. We want to get to the intelligence level, not just emotional intelligence. You hear a lot about that, or mental intelligence. It's also body intelligence. It's identity intelligence. It's who we are as a package. You're inviting them up. But now think about this. Let's say that we're out hiking and you see me on part of the trail, and I've turned around and I am trying to give somebody a hand up because they're struggling to get up to my level. Who do you think has more power in that situation? Me at the top or them below? They actually do. And so it is easier for someone when they are dysregulated to pull you down to their level than for you to get them up to yours, which is the reason why I invited my friend into an experience with me when she was ready, because then she was going to choose to regulate with me. If I just went in like I had done in the past, multiple times, I already told you that. First time, second time, third time, I'm getting it. Okay. So multiple times I had worked with her to pull the details out and find out what was going on. And then I would leave and she'd be a little bit better, but not necessarily regulated. And I definitely would be dysregulated. Okay. Out of sorts. Not feeling good. And I tell people, notice where you don't feel good at, because there's a message there also through your subconscious. I have one of my clients who gets some stomach trouble. That's our place of power. That is our place to where we're like, I am going to make things happen. Well, when we look back at her history, we see that people took that power away from her and they used it for their own benefit at her expense. Me personally, I get it in my chest where my heart is, my heart connection. But sometimes it'll be higher up to where it almost goes into my throat. I'm like, whenever I get that feeling, watch out. Because somebody wants me to lose my voice. They don't want me to be able to state my claim. So just notice where you experience the upset, the physical symptoms, and we're going to be talking about that the next time we get together, the dysfunctional habits that you put into place to compensate for the dysregulation. Because wherever you're feeling that dysregulation, you will pick up a habit to try to soothe that certain area. Makes complete sense that I picked up smoking at a very, very young age. Because I was trying to quell what I was experiencing up here. And isn't it funny how, I let go of that habit decades ago. And now I use that very same feeling and that voice to try to help you find yours. Okay, so co-regulation versus dysregulation. You are born with a baseline for your system, your entire autonomic nervous system, everything that's going on internally. And that baseline is one that has a set point for success. And when you co-regulate, you are in harmony with another healthy person and you're resonating with them. Or if you're dysregulated and you get around somebody that has a very strong regulation, you're dysregulated and you get around them. This is what my clients do whenever they come to me. And I'm like, okay, let's begin to regulate you. All right, get in tune with me. I'm already where I need to be, but I'm not a therapist for my friends. So I will invite them to co-regulate. And there have been times I've been dysregulated and I've gone to other people. I have another friend. Oh my gosh. So last summer, whenever I was in the dating world and thought I had found somebody and then was like, oh, wait, this is so not good. She was able to sit with me and hear me speak my truth, how I felt like I was going from hurt to harm, and help me put it all together and then be able to move forward in a way that was a healthy choice of needing to let go of that relationship. Okay. So we can attune to someone else when they're healthy and they can give us that hand up, not a handout that keeps you on the same level. Okay. So our set point for success, though, can be manipulated by someone else. And they can manipulate it to where they either want us to overperform and fill the gaps where they're not taking action, or where we pick up a very heavy load that they don't want to carry. So they put it on top of ours. And now we're dragging around our stuff as well as theirs. And they absolutely overwhelm our system. And because of that inclusion of others and self, we see their problem as our problem. We see it as a shared problem. Violates a boundary, doesn't it? No. They're doing this, they're going toxic, not because they want to share the load with you. That would be in a healthy, regulated relationship. No, they're going toxic because they want you to do all the work for them. Remember how I asked you at the beginning, think about who taught you to be dysregulated and then who in their life was pushing them to be dysregulated? Yeah, because you then learned that when you're around certain people, you should be dysregulated instead of staying strong, instead of staying stable, instead of staying at your set point for success. And your subconscious mind, which runs all of your habits and patterns, and it's the storehouse for all of your memories and emotions and so much more, is running your entire system right now. It doesn't make judgments on whether something is good or bad, healthy or not. That is up to your conscious mind, also known as your prefrontal cortex, your executive functioning center. So we have to get the subconscious agreement that toxic people no longer trigger being dysregulated. In fact, toxic people actually trigger boundaries. Now we're going to get more into toxic people and how it causes us to go toxic in a couple of episodes. But I want you to be able to start recognizing the difference between someone being dysregulated and dysfunctional and somebody being toxic. Somebody dysregulated, dysfunctional, it happens once in a while to all of us. But when they're toxic, when they are a cluster F, it's all the time. Manipulation is their game. You will never beat them at it, and they will never get any better. You're not going to be the one to save them. And keep in mind, what happened to the last savior? They nailed him to a cross. You try to save a cluster F, you will get nailed to a cross also. You will be sacrificed for their benefit. But there's something that they will do that, and they'll do it repeatedly, that will tip you off that they are toxic. They want you to do something known as going deep. And that deep stands for, they want you to defend yourself. You've done something, and yeah, you need to stand up for yourself. By the way, I had a friend one time make this statement to me: I think you're trying to hurt my feelings on purpose. Right there, she was wanting me to defend myself. I didn't know if she was going toxic or not, but it was stopping right there, because I said, I won't defend myself. Not going to. And whenever you're ready to talk again in a way where we can work together, let me know. Because they want you to defend yourself, and they want to keep you engaged by you over explaining. The more you over explain, the more they are going to weaponize those beautiful parts of you for their benefit at your expense. This is when they take advantage. All you're doing is weaponizing yourself to be used against yourself. So they want you to defend. They want you to continue to explain. That's the second E. Or over explain. They want you to continue to stay engaged with them. But then the P is what tops it all off. They will say something that they know you will take personal. And they are actually trying to trigger what's known as learned helplessness. Learned helplessness, 4 components. The first one is you take it personal. You think it's somehow because you're flawed, you're broken, you can't be fixed. Then it is pervasive. It's going to infect every single area of your life because it's because of you. And then after that, it's permanent, because you can't ever be fixed. And then you are in what's known as power under, power over. They have power over you, and you are underneath them. And in your mind, your subconscious doesn't use language to process. It uses symbols. So literally, you're this little tiny representation in your subconscious, and this problem, this person is the boogeyman looming over you. Isn't it interesting how, when I told you at the very beginning about remembering me being between the ages of 2 and 3 on my trike, how small she was. And this problem that I was experiencing now as an adult with the dog was looming over her. This is the reason why you have to relearn. You have to put the larger sense of self, who you are, your wise woman, in place of that child, because the child will always be smaller than the problem. And this is what toxic people want to do. They say something personal, because then you're going to go right back into defending yourself, engaging through over explanation. And now they have complete power over you, and they get to feed off of all of this. And I will tell you right now, just a few weeks ago, I was in this very situation, and I wasn't sure. He did the first 3, and I did. What did we talk about earlier? Gray rock. Hey, this is what you've got available to you. And he tried baiting me. And I'm like, well, you can use it or not, it's whatever. And he did something else. And I'm like, well, I'm basically completed what it is that I need to do on my side of the agreement. And then he came back and said something personal. And I was like, oh, I know who you are now. And if I step into your realm, you won't ever have a hand up. You will always drag me down into the pit below you, because it's the only way you can make yourself feel better. Whew. Okay, so we covered a lot today. Now let's begin to look at how to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire. So when you're pissy, you need to do what's known as bottom up. See, there's two types of therapy. There's bottom up, top down. When you are dysregulated, doing top down, oh, I'm just going to chant affirmations and I'm going to think happy thoughts, and it doesn't work. Because if there is ever an argument between your brain and your body's going to win, because your body always keeps track of what's going on, even if the brain forgets, even if the brain's not paying attention. The body knows, always does. Okay, so what do you need to do? You need to do bottom up. And one of the easiest things is what's known as 4x4 breathing. So like a box has 4 sides, you're going to breathe in for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, and then complete the cycle again. If you can do that for 5 minutes, you're bringing yourself back to your set point. Also know that when you have become dysregulated, that a lot of emotional intensity and energy is built up in your body and it needs a release. Now, you could go out and take a walk in nature. It's already been shown that just walking outside, as long as you don't live in a concrete jungle, just walking outside. Notice how I didn't say sitting. Notice how I didn't say just, being outside and doing yoga poses. No, you actually got to be in some sort of movement, emotion, energy in motion. You got to move, okay? So taking a walk outside, brisk physical activity, helps move that energy out of your system. You're going to need to have about 10 minutes of it. But the best thing I can do is tell you to co-regulate with somebody. Reach out to someone, just like I told you that whenever I had that memory flashback, and then it was like, okay, later on, I called my mom so we could laugh about my dog not liking my feng shui or evidently my decor. Even though mom is the one who taught me how to dysregulate, oh my gosh, she has come a long way over the years. And so she now helps stabilize me. So I reached out and we laughed about it, because that's the next thing. Humor will dispel dysregulation. Okay. So that's if you're pissy. Breathe, move, find someone you can co-regulate. And if you can laugh, that's a bonus. Then anger. When you find yourself getting angry, look at the boundaries. What boundary? Is it appropriate? What is the boundary around? Is that significant? So the boundaries and the values, what are the consequences? And do you need to be asking yourself those questions? Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? Does this need to be said right now? And then creating the life you desire. It is now said that at least 20% of people are toxic. That's 1 in 5. 1 in 5, what you thought were supposed friends. 1 in 5 coworkers. 1 in 5 people that you're going to come across in your everyday world. So what is it that you can put into place to, number 1, make sure that you're safe? Then number 2, you no longer create the patterns from the past in the present, and instead you give the past and that pain a purpose for progress by actually using it in a way that moves you forward. Well, that's when we look at working together. So whether you go to dawnlandrum.com, whether you decide Can Hypnosis Help You.com, or reach out to me direct 1-636-699-7791. Let's see what it is that you need to experience and bringing out your beauty and your brilliance. So until you can do this for yourself, why don't you tap into my belief that you are here to make the world a better place because you're better in it. See you soon.